Welcome, everyone. We are so happy to have you with us for our Salon number 70, Why the World is in Crisis and What Can We Do? With Genevieve Vaughan as our main speaker, and joining us today as responders and commenters are Paola Melchiori, Angela Dolmetsch, Susan Petrilli, and I think Maria Suarez may be joining, and also Areeya Marie Sharp. Our salons are hosted by the International Feminists for the Gift Economy. I'm Letecia Layson, your moderator. So let's begin. Genevieve Vaughan is an independent researcher who lives part-time in Italy and part-time in Texas. She had created a multicultural, all-woman activist foundation for a compassionate society that had its activities from 1987 through 2005, and founded the Temple of Sekhmet in the Nevada desert in 1992, which still is ongoing. She co-created the network International Feminists for a Gift Economy in 2001. Those who are joining her on the screen are all part of that network, including all of us who actually support the salons. Her foundational book, For Giving, A Feminist Criticism of Exchange, was published in 1997. Her most recent book, The Gift in the Heart of Language, The Maternal Source of Meaning, was published in 2015. She's co-edited several books and hosted many events. So we're just very happy to have her to give us insight from the maternal gift economy viewpoint of why is the world in crisis and what can we do? So Genevieve, please. I'm turning the mic to you.
Thank you so much, Letecia. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I have been very busy in the last weeks, and I haven't had the mental space to prepare this as well as I would have liked. However, I hope you will bear with me. I have thought about this end of the world scenario we are living in a lot, as I'm sure the rest of you have. I think many perspectives are useful. The healing of our collective insanity must be a collective effort. Many important perspectives are being put forward now, and I hope we will be able to connect them with each other. For example, I have been watching a series of Zooms called Mother House Teachings, Complicit No More, and part of the Land Back Project. It's put on by Native American women and progressive Catholic nuns. And it begins by showing how the papal doctrine of discovery was responsible for justifying the Europeans' takeover of native lands and cultures in the Americas and elsewhere. This series of webinars can be viewed on YouTube, and I recommend it. Our salon today is the 70th of our Maternal Gift Economy series. And I believe most of you will already know a lot about the maternal gift economy, so I will only talk about it briefly. Well, I actually talk about it more than briefly, but anyway. I consider unilateral giving to satisfy needs as the first and basic human economy. It is not exchange, quid pro quo, giving in order to get back an equivalent, but giving directly to satisfy a need. Its focus is not egocentric, but alter-centric, centered on the receiver. This is necessary in early childhood because human infants are born vulnerable with their brains as well as their bodies not fully formed, and they require repeated care from someone else in order to survive. This means that if she does survive, the first and most crucial model any child has is the unilaterally giving alter-centric other from whom she receives. My contention is that it is this first model of unilateral giving that the child absorbs and imitates, and that forms the blueprint, the basis of the logic of all our lives and our understanding. As they grow, young children and their mothers do respond to each other, mirroring each other in spontaneous games of bodily movements, sounds, and smiles called proto-conversations, or with a tennis metaphor, serve and return. These should not be considered exchanges, however, but a kind of early mutually imitative and responsive sociality and practice in repeating and absorbing the giving and receiving model. My contention is that in societies based on market exchange, quid pro quo itself inserts itself into this mutually imitative early gift model, taking it over and therefore seeming to be our original human relation, although it is bilateral and conditional. We project exchange backwards into childhood and become blind to the origins of our most important human relations. Due to the gendered division of labor, most motherers are women, and I believe we recognize the unilateral and gifting and receiving model because we practice it and have not been alienated from it. But academia has yet to understand it as the fundamental human model that it is. I believe that unilateral giving and receiving are a basic interactional and cognitive structure that can be traced in many interactions that we do not think of in those terms. Throwing and catching a ball, speaking and listening, pouring tea into a cup, putting ingredients into a pot, giving heat to the pot, taking the food from the pot and giving it to the family, going from one place to another, walking, giving one foot forward to the earth, then the other, and many others, including physical objects like jigsaw puzzles and Lego, cogwheels, even machines where explosive power gives motion, electric currents that give light and motion through plugs that allow devices to receive them. Perception is also reception, and our own presence is perceived and received by others. Neurons fire as they give and receive impulses. The basic processes of giving and receiving and passing it on, giving again and again, are usually seen as sui generis and not connected to each other. This makes many of them mysterious, and we name them differently, putting them in different categories that I recently realized are mental receptacles, receivers of perceptual and conceptual gifts. This is a kind of denial, or there is a kind of denial or reluctance to recognize gifting, even in language regarding economics. We talk about housework, unwaged work, not as gifting and gifted work. Surplus labor is that portion of labor that is not paid and thus is gifted to the capitalists as profit, which is then given by them to their capital, increasing it for further investment. Cheap products are often products, a large part of which contain gifted work. When women are paid less than men for equal work, that part of their work is gifted. Alfred Sohn-Rethel was a Marxist who talked about exchange as causing an abstraction in reality. A real abstraction or exchange abstraction, which makes us think abstractly. Ever since the appearance of money in Lydia in around 600 BCE, European philosophers have been creating abstract systems. Sohn-Rethel discussed the pre-Socratic philosophers in this sense, and his work is now also corroborated and convincingly elaborated by classicist Richard Seifert. Sohn-Rethel was interested in the origin of the cognitive ability itself and criticized the Kantian transcendental subject, showing that the real-life abstraction of exchange was the origin of much of our abstract thinking. One good example is Newton and Galileo's concept of inertia at the beginning of modern science. Inertia is the consideration of motion without a beginning and an end. That is, in our terms, without a giver and receiver. And this is just what happens in the process of exchange, where the unilateral gift is canceled and replaced by the bilateral evaluation and replacement by money, with exchangers who are indifferent to each other, not socially relating givers and receivers. Since our whole economy is based on exchange, we are continually, daily, denying the maternal unilateral giving and its logic of giving value to the unilateral receiver. While it is true that we do give and receive with the goods that we have bought, at present, this gifting is dependent on the market economy for its very existence, at least mostly. And market exchange is the logical contradiction of giving and receiving unilaterally. This coexistence of opposites brings exchange into the foreground and places gifting in an unrecognized background as secondary, something other. We do not see that the market economy is parasitic on the gifts of all, and that profit is actually made up of the gift of surplus labor and the free gifts of nature. We may rightly say that these gifts are extracted, but to the capitalist receiver, they are free. I want to step back now and briefly describe another abstraction from the maternal gift economy, coming from a change of category. In their infancy, both boys and girls develop their selfhood as givers and receivers in interaction with their mothers, as I said above. When boys learn language, they realize they have a different gender name and are in a different category from their female gift-giving motherers. And they are then faced with the need to transfer out of that category towards a model, the father or other male, who is usually not engaged in directly caring for the child. I call this process masculation, that is, making the child male as opposed to emasculation, which would be taking away a male's masculinity. So this is emasculation. And I propose that this change of models away from the gift-giving mother is an extraction or abstraction of the boy from the maternal gift economy identity. This creates a situation in which the boy's gender identity follows a path similar to that of a would-have-been gift that becomes a commodity in exchange, reflecting itself in a relation of equivalence with money, the general equivalent of all commodities on the market. That is, in Euro-American heterosexuality, boy children leave their early identity formation with the gifting mother and take on their masculine identity in relation to a male exemplar. Although the underlying gift matrix continues for everyone in language and logic as the blueprint or matrix of life, and adult males also do gifting, patriarchy imposes this altered model for boys. This is often based on a derivative or analog of gifting, which is hitting, where there is also a trajectory of motion from one to the other, and it is made not to nurture the receiver, but to harm and diminish the other, making her or him smaller, more childlike, yielding, submissive, and dependent. So in patriarchy, there's a change towards an abstracted model of the human as male, where giving is often transformed into force and power over. The giving hand into the hitting hand, and dominance becomes the preferred interaction as a prerequisite to any furthering of the well-being of the other. Though there is also the excuse for hitting, I'm doing this for your own good. This results in a society of male individualism where adult males dominate women and children and are in adversarial positions, protecting their gifting families and their gift-producing private properties against takeovers by other males in similar positions. I believe this pattern of abstraction from and domination of gifting is repeated at many levels, from the individual to the many, and expressed also in domination by race, class, and religion, and from the local to the national and international, in a struggle for dominance of populations and of property and of land and of gifting nature. I call this change of gender categories the masculation abstraction, and I see it as a precursor in the individual life of the exchange abstraction, the social removal of products from the gift economy and their transformation into exchangeable commodities related to money as their general equivalent. Although they take place at different times of life, and one on an individual and the other on a social level, these two abstractions reflect and reinforce each other, merging to create capitalist patriarchy or patriarchal capitalism, as we want to characterize it. Commodity exchange among adults draws on and reinforces the exit from the maternal gift category that the boy experiences in masculation, creating a context of the market that gives validation to his presumably non-gifting identity, which was artificially induced in him in childhood by identifying him socially as belonging to a non-maternal gender category. On the other hand, the existence of this non-gifting identity validates and reinforces the alienation of commodity exchangers of both genders from each other, facilitating and empowering the market processes. So the expression patriarchal capitalism or capitalist patriarchy refers to the merger of the two abstractions from gifting. The male gender abstraction and the exchange abstraction both alter the original unilateral maternal gifting logic. Masculation turns the gift and value-implying process into a mechanism of potential harm and power over others, while exchange logically contradicts the value-implying process while making it possible to give monetized value to monetized value, creating enormous capitals that need to be invested again and again in order to grow. These two abstractions from and contradictions of giving, the exchange abstraction and the gender abstraction, function together to create capitalist domination rationales for taking over others' gifting and gifted lives and lands, altering the flow of their gifts towards the dominators. Weapons as instruments for giving death and seizures of territories and continents by emasculated and marketed colonizing cultures are the products of the merger of masculation and exchange. To answer the first question of the title of this salon, let me say that I surmise that the combination of these two abstractions from the pan-human process of maternal gifting create a social, logical, and psychological mechanism that is the reason that the world is in what seems today to be a terminal crisis on many fronts. The environmental devastation, the threat of nuclear war, the horrifying patriarchal capitalist genocide of Palestinians and now Lebanese by Israel, the death by war, starvation, and disease of millions in the global South, the persecution of immigrants, all these have their origin in the parasitism of exchange on gifting as facilitated by masculation and the exchange abstraction. Living in this insanity and considering it normal makes us believe that we are a defective warlike species and then we follow each other over the cliff of despair to what we consider a justified collective suicide. Actually, we are not defective as a species, but we have altered ourselves economically and conceptually away from our maternal species being. Continuing to investigate the positive character of the unilateral gift, we can see how many of its offshoots are co-opted and contradicted by transforming the gift into exchange. For example, telling the truth is a gift because it allows the hearer or receiver to behave and plan according to the genuine assessment of a situation by someone else, the truth teller. On the other hand, a lie does not allow this behavior by the receiver or hearer. Advertising and propaganda have become businesses that make money by promoting false communicative gifts, that is, lies. At the international North-South level, gifts of aid by countries that have been given to countries in need promote seemingly benign strategies of development, which are actually devices of hidden exploitation. These and many similar distortions undermine the positive human relations and trust that genuine unilateral giving and receiving originally creates. Unfortunately, this lying and taking discredits giving, as do many other manipulative uses of purported unilateral gifts. We do not include the maternal economy in our explanation of the world. So we see exploitative interaction as immoral or illegal, but since exploiting women's gift has been endemic since the beginning, this realization has very little power for change. Instead, if we Euro-Americans recognize our historical responsibility for the present situation, if we realize that the logic of exchange and patriarchy combined in patriarchal capitalism, the two abstractions merged together, are driving our maternal species insane, we as women who have not been masculated and still have much of the maternal model available, even if we work in the market and don't actually mother children of our own, we can join with each other to lead the way out of this. Together with men who have freed themselves intellectually and emotionally from the combined masculation abstraction and the exchange abstraction, we can begin to function again as the maternal species we really are, in cooperation with other cultures, who are also realizing this now, or who have never given up their ancestors' knowledge and practice as homo donans, the gifting being. We are all homo donans and sapiens, the species of gifting beings who know that they give and receive. Some groups of us have become insane because we are playing the part of the patriarchal capitalist parasite that is causing itself to be nurtured by the gifts of all, at the same time that it is destroying the gifts of nature, of other peaceful populations, and the future planetary giving of gifts. It is important to recognize maternal gifting as the original and basic human interaction and trace its thread through the most complicated of human interactions, maintaining it as structural even when it is contradicted by exchange insanity that presents itself as normality. See the patriarchal vengeance exchange now operating in the Middle East. Recognizing ourselves as gifters and receivers debilitates the syndromes of guilt, which are preparing for paying back those we have harmed. Though giving the gift of restoration, not the exchange of vengeance to those who have been harmed, can be part of the transition to the gift paradigm. We need restorative justice, not justice as quid pro quo exchange. There is much more to be said about the maternal gift economy. We have been taught not to recognize or think it is a thing. It actually permeates our lives, even when we don't see it. And I have spent a large part of my life trying to see it and to disentangle it from exchange. This project has led me to believe that Western or European American philosophy is all wrong, because ever since its beginning, after the invention of money, it has left out the maternal gift economy as the underlying economic structure that would, in Marxist terms, determine the superstructure of ideas and understanding. Thus, male philosophers have eliminated the real origin and basis of human social life while inventing philosophical systems that explain things without it, placing gifting in categories of ethics and good versus evil, having to do with personal choices and leaving aside the structural nature of the unilateral gift. Knowing this could allow women to rewrite Western philosophy, putting the maternal gift economy back into it, reconnecting with indigenous philosophies, and thus taking away the validation Western thinking has provided for masculation and exchange. It has been difficult for us European settlers to grasp and respect the gift economies of native peoples and their corresponding ways of thinking, because our own economies are so deeply engaged in the taking of gifts and in denying, not seeing, that is what we are doing. So now, what is to be done? Since gifting begins with mothering, being mothered, which is done mainly by women, the oppression of women and their exclusion from public life over the centuries may also be seen as the oppression and domination of the maternal gift economy, its logic and its paradigm. Women and the unilateral gift as the logic of life are the answer to the situation we are in that is threatening all of life. Men can also realize this and shift their own understanding and behavior towards gifting, regaining the maternal model they lost through masculation and exchange. Misogyny is an instrument of Euro-American patriarchy that has kept women and the gift paradigm in the background, allowing patriarchy, exchange, and capitalism to increasingly wreak havoc, bringing us to this end of the world scenario. By bringing the gift forward into the light as the pan-human process, women and men can begin making different choices that do not depend on neoliberal patriarchal egocentrism for their justification, but that hark back to the logic of the other-centered unilateral gift model. Do we have the time before it is too late? It is so late that changing the way we think and behave will not have any effect? I think we have to try. People everywhere have different views of the situation and correspondingly different pieces of the puzzle, and they are trying. It is possible that if we recognize the unilateral matrix underlying and permeating our lives, as well as the way it is contradicted, and if we extend the concept of economy to include its maternal base, and if we see other-oriented values as the superstructure of the maternal economy, the matrix upon which the exchange economy is parasitic, we will be able to see through the exchange economy to its gift-giving substratum and recognize our true human natures as homodonons, problem-solving, altruism, construction of social good, creating the re-emergence of maternal gift after its nearly terminal contradiction by exchange and patriarchy. This will allow us to justify our choices not as individual morality, but as revolutionary maternal practice for social change. Things that can be done. We can recognize the gift economy where it already exists in individual and in society. We can take it, not exchange, as the beginning of the thread of our humanity. Recognize it everywhere and empower it socially and individually, and begin to practice it as givers and receivers without shame or shaming. Transition as quickly as possible away from the patriarchal capitalism to an economy based on the maternal human. We can start by recognizing the maternal economy and its values as the common root of gift economy projects, eco-villages, transition towns, even projects for peace, saving the environment, ending hunger, truth-telling. Recognize that projects for justice as payment for crime and projects for alternative currencies still follow to some extent the exchange principle, while restorative justice and gift economy experiments try to enact giving. We can transition away from money and exchange while satisfying needs, continuing to satisfy needs. We can restore maternal values for both men and women. This seems to be happening via physiological transition in the trans movement. But it needs to happen first in the mind and psychologically and socially rather than physiologically, I believe. We can begin to solve some problems unilaterally, and by unilateral giving and receiving. Problem solving is gifting. Individuals and groups can do this. We can create matriarchal councils, matriarchal education. We can make unilateral giving visible and the object of study and understanding. We can understand the contradiction of gifting by the masculated gender abstraction and the exchange abstraction. We can respect and understand different ways of knowing, pre-exchange and pre-gender, different experiential ways. All of this depends on whether we have time. Some say we only have 6 years before the environment crashes. But we have to try. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Well, I'm sure that there is a lot in the discussion that's going to come afterwards with comments from our guests. So thank you, Jen, so much for that very stimulating talk. And I look forward to hearing from everyone who's here in our webinar format. So let's have Angela Dolmetsch start us off, and each of our responders are going to have 5 to 7 minutes. Diane is going to be the timekeeper so that we make sure that we have a few moments after all of our responders and giving Jen a chance to respond in between. And maybe we'll be able to have some questions at the end. So Angela D., would you please welcome you and unmute? Thank you.
Well, I am Angela Dolmetsch. I am from Colombia. I live in Colombia. In a way, what we have done here as part of our gift economy or maternal gift economy is to create this sort of environment of an eco village which is led by women, and which we try to see where in the midst of this patriarchal world we can somehow find our way by the matriarchal gift economy. But obviously that is just a grain of sand in this immense patriarchal capitalism conflict, because basically at this moment the world is going through I mean, not only from the environmental bit, which obviously Ajay says it happens because of the patriarchal capitalism and because of the exchange economy, which means that whatever gives profit is fine. Whatever makes money is fine. It doesn't matter if you extract oil or if you extract gold like they are doing in Colombia, and if you finish off the environment by using by the massive uses of vehicles, then it is all fine. Everything is all right. It's all right. And then we come to the big destruction of the planet by these incredible wars created by patriarchy. We have Netanyahu, and we had Putin, and we had all these, and well, I suppose in a way also Trump, all these men who are in charge now of making sure that the world is destroyed. And the thing is, do we have the time? How can we influence the highest spheres when these decisions are taken? Obviously, we could start making the grain of sand by trying to change the way we behave, and not only the way we behave, but also the way we create, and we try to create somehow in our surroundings, sort of islands of gift economy, of maternal gift economy. But that would be something that probably will survive after we go up, after the world gets destroyed by a nuclear war. And that is the worry. What can women do at this moment to make sure that men don't actually destroy our planet, because that is what is happening. And so I think that we would like to have some sort of guidelines of how to move forward, how to see, how can we convince, or how can we do something that would make sure that the world is not being destroyed. I mean, sometimes you think, okay, maybe the United States at this moment is the world leader, continues to be the world leader, but somehow it doesn't seem to be going the right path. So can we, would it be possible if we elect a woman that she would be able to be influenced by the women's movement somehow, and take a decision to change the way that the world is going? I mean, how can we influence the places where decisions are taken? Because that is at this moment crucial. I mean, because whatever we do in our own little bits of surroundings is great, but it is something that probably won't be able to make the difference when the great decisions about what is going to happen are taken. So, I mean, I have just had a letter from our friend from Israel, from Areeya, and Areeya is desperate. She really wants to leave the country. She cannot be there anymore. I have invited her to come over to Colombia and live in Achira. And I think she said probably she would do that with her companion. And obviously that is just a grain of sand that we can do, to help people, women who cannot live anymore in this terrible patriarchal conflict and war and world, which is that happening now. And somehow it would be nice to get some guidelines. How can we move forward? I mean, apart from our little grain of sand, I don't know whether there is any way that we create a massive women's movement where we could influence whoever is going to get. I mean, if a woman gets elected as president of the United States, would she be influenced? Would it be possible to influence her with the matriarchal gift economy, so that we change somehow the way that the world is taking, or that the path that now is being taken? So I wonder where Jen would actually give us a line to see that is something that is possible or not.
Thank you, Angela. Jen, did you want to respond shortly, or?
Yeah, I can. The world is big. There are like 8.5 billion people on Earth. And I think we all are beginning to want some deep changes. I think probably a woman president like Kamala Harris would be maybe better. but than a man, but certainly better than Trump. But I think I don't think she has any idea about the maternal gift economy, and I think she's probably completely involved in patriarchal capitalism as to her mindset. So I don't know if we could find a way of convincing her about the maternal gift economy. What we can do is convince more women generally of the 8.5 billion people that there are on Earth. And the more we don't know all of the other initiatives that may be being taken to think differently and to try to change things, because we simply don't have the information, although there are a lot of truth tellers out there trying to reveal the disaster of propaganda. And they are acting, and the people who are giving the gift of their activism to change things, they are acting in gifting ways without knowing it. I don't have any quick fix, but I think that of the many that we are on Earth, we can come up together with practical solutions. And as I said, I think that if the people who are already doing social change work connect it with mothering or with the maternal gift economy, then that would already be a step ahead. So I'm courageous or foolhardy enough to think that that is a possibility. I think practical projects like you're doing, Angela, are great, but we also have to have a shift in mentality and in understanding of what the problems are.
Thank you, Jen.
That's for what I can do.
That was wonderful. Okay, let us invite Susan Petrilli. Susan, would you like to unmute and put your camera on? Welcome. Susan is joining us from Italy. We're so happy to have you with us today, Susan.
Thank you. There we go. Hello, everybody. Well, first of all, I want to thank Jen for such a compelling presentation of your ideas, which I think you are obviously working on, on a theoretical level, and have reached a high degree, really, of elaboration and clarity. So, really thank you for that. I won't add anything, obviously, to what you say. You're the expert. All I can say is that it is so interesting for me to listen to you and translate in the effort to understand and translate into my own language, let's say. And therefore, improve systems of thought or whatever. So, responding to the title of this meeting today, why the world is in crisis, right? And my immediate reaction is that a surprise? To me, what is happening today? Jen, I can't see you. Your head's chopped off. Can I see you? All right. What's happening today, to me, is the logical consequence of what's been happening in the world for decades and decades and decades. There's nothing surprising. This was the only direction: death, destruction, war, starvation, exploitation. I've always said, suffice it for just one child to die of famine to understand what the world is. The fact of just assisting, knowing that one child alone, it's not a question of number, this is the whole point. It's the logic. just one child dying of famine puts us in, in a position of total guilt, all of us, the whole world. That's the logic, the indifference towards that one child. It's the same logic, the indifference towards the masses. It's all on the same line of development, let's say. What to do? What can we do? Very difficult, because there is no easy solution. I think the work that we do on a theoretical level is fundamental on the level of knowledge and understanding. And the work we do in the world on the practical level, all these movements, the activism, obviously, I think both fronts are absolutely essential, vital, and need to somehow connect and walk together, which is what you've done all your life, Jen. I mean, look at the paper that the presentation today is really dense from a theoretical, philosophical point of view. Extraordinary work, and I ask you to send me that paper, please. And we need to translate that into Italian. Among other languages. It's an excellent piece of work. And then this is what you've done, and I think this is the model, the theoretical work for who has that inclination, and the work on the ground, the work in communities, small communities, larger and even larger communities. It all has to be done. This is about revolution, cultural revolution. It's the only solution. But it's a slow revolution, in the sense that we have to work on the ideas, on the understanding. We have to understand the problems. There have to be people in the community who for example, there's so much talk about security, right? And in the name of security, we justify massacre, assassination, and genocide in the name of security, in the name of peace, in the name of preventive war. We kill. And this has been going on a massive scale since the war on Iraq. That's when there was a turning point in our conception of war and understanding of war. You know, war was proposed already in the 90s as the way to peace, preventive war instead of preventive peace. And this already contradicted accords and understandings that had been reached in 1975 with the L'Acte de Helsinki, the Helsinki Act, where it was declared by most countries in the world that war was never justifiable. It was never going to be the way to peace. And now we live in this ridiculous world where the story is, if we want peace, we've got to go to war and massacre as many people as we possibly can. And this in the name of security. Never have I felt less secure in a world where it is possible for a nation, the state of Israel, but not only, for a nation to commit genocide without consequences. There is no value given to human life, no value to human life, none whatsoever. If I can kill so many innocent people to assassinate whom I consider my enemy. And no respect for law, international law, not for what we think,
1 minute left.
Sorry? Okay, sorry. So I was just saying that I tend to translate your discourse, Jen, into my own, where I speak of the I-other relationship as at the origin of human relationship, at the origin of sociality. And this is what we need to recover alterity, the otherness which is inside all of us. We need to recover that original relationship, which is not only a question of sociality, it's even more radical. It's biological. We live on the planet Earth, and we live in all of us, and we live in a condition of total interdependency, interconnectivity. We need the other. We depend on the other, not only because it's the other who brings me into this world, but because I can only walk through this world with the other. And this other is nature, ecology, it's social, it's the human other and the non-human other. So this is very interesting for me to translate what you're saying, Jen, into this kind of language as well. Okay, that'll do. Thank you. And thank you, Jen.
Thank you so much, Susan. Jen, did you have any comments right now, or shall I have another responder come on?
Well, I would say just quickly that this idea of war for peace is totally contradictory and totally non-maternal. I mean, all of these problems are problems that come from not basing ourselves in a maternal attitude of nurture towards the other instead of abolishing the other or hitting the other or killing the other. So that's just all I wanted to say, because so we agree, but that's just it. Yeah.
Thanks, Jen. I'm going to call Maria Suarez to offer her commentary to Jen's talk, and Diane will be keeping time for us. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you. I'm gonna be very short. I think everybody in my circle of influence knows the problems that I have with the internet in the place where I live now. So I'm gonna turn my video off the way I have been doing on and off because I get disconnected. So I'm gonna be very short. And what I want to say is that following on Genevieve and on Angela and on Susan, it's very hard to say something that is additional because all of it goes to the essence of many of the problems that we have. I would like to acknowledge, of course, Genevieve's contribution to the theory, but Genevieve is also an activist because she not only has practiced the gift economy by doing it, but also in the way that she handles her finances. So I have always said that when we have a paradigm, be it the gift economy, the maternal gift economy, or whatever, the way that we live it in the interaction with the patriarchal paradigms is as critical as deepening the theory and the practice of the alternative paradigm, because that is how social change can happen. Because we have to work with other people, we have to convince other people, we live within the system by trying to subvert the system. Bell Hooks said it better than anybody. It's not with the instruments of the patriarchy that we're going to change the patriarchy, but we live in it and we have to struggle within it to do transformative policy. What do I mean by that? That for every weekend that Genevieve said, I could give many experiences, and so can any of us, about the we do, because women live like that. Women create matriarch structures.
Yeah, we seem to have lost Maria. Maria, if you can hear us, we're so sorry. You did fade away. And if you can come back on, we'll put you back on. But right now, I think what we want to do is just take a pause for just a moment, and then let me check in with Peggy. Peggy, did you have anything that you wanted to offer right now?
Yes, Letecia, I put in the chat that I'm in Barbados now and I have no internet and I'm in a public place. so my video is off. I just want to say that I really want to thank Jen because of her, I watched that video. What is the world? Why is the world in crisis, and what can we do? And I want to tell everybody they should watch it, because what Jen had to say and what Vandana had to say was more important than what anybody else had to say in defining the crisis, but in particular in talking about solutions. So I really want to focus on solutions and to thank Jen for introducing me to that video, which I hope everybody looks at. The panel included, of course, a climate scientist, and I want to really start with that in terms of solutions. Everybody was very good about what the crisis is. And in terms of the solutions, the climate crisis, the person who is most knowledgeable basically said, there is no solution. We have passed the tipping point. So he proposed, I love it, he said, we should think of ourselves now in a situation of planetary hospice. Planetary hospice, okay? We've passed the tipping point. And he proposed doing 3 things, focusing on 3 areas, and that's what I want to raise. He said the first area is the area of family and friends. And I really want to focus on that because that is the only area in which we have any control. I'm myself completely past trying to get women elected as presidents or as heads of the UN. I really think that's a waste of energy. I mean, it would be nice if they got elected, but I personally will not spend any of my time doing that. Personally, I want to follow that advice at what I can do and really work on the area of family and friends, which is where we have the most control. In that area, we need to treasure our friends and our families, the people we are closest to us, treasure them more than ever. But I really want to concentrate on the community. That's the next one. So the next area is the area of community and community building. And I think that that's really where what Jen has to suggest and what Vandana has to suggest is the most important. Because that's where we try to build, first of all, to recognize the existence of the maternal gift economy everywhere. To recognize, as Vandana says, that we are all one. We are all one. To reclaim our autonomy and our common humanity. To prioritize food security, small-scale production, renewable energy, self-organizing, organizing our community, the people that we know best. The community, not only in terms of the physical community, our neighborhood, but also the people we work with and the people that are part of our networks. That's all part of our community. That is where we really need to put our energy. And the third area is society. And I just want to say a word about society because we can identify areas on which we can work, whether it is doing the work that Vandana talks about, that is trying to protect our seeds, to focus on regeneration. There are things that we could identify in our larger society on which we could all work, is really what I'm saying. But I think the most important thing of all is to recognize that we are all one and to build community and to contribute through our society to what to address the problems that we're facing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peggy. I appreciate that. All right. Let me check in with Paola. Paola, would you like to offer something here?
Yeah, yes, I can. Thank you, Jen, again. Every time you refine something and something else comes in the forefront. Anyway, this time as I like to work in the gray area, as you know. This time the gray areas where to work intellectually and practically in a way are two. I mean, the fact that the result, that the today's situation is the result of patriarchy and capitalism together, there is now no doubt on that. And in a way, I think the advantage of this moment is that this is becoming clearer in its contradiction to more people. There is a very interesting also article of Chris Hedges saying, you know, sometimes revolution starts from a little thing that is the drop, the final drop of something that is there developing, and then at one point it becomes so clear that people start moving. And in a way, it's true, as Susan says, that this is the result of this long process of these two aspects. But today, the contradiction is so more and more evident to many people. This is one point I want to make. So you can work on the links, on making people see more some links among phenomena that are in general denied. Example, you know, I've been raised in the croyance that, you know, the Jewish people in Palestine transformed the desert in a wood. Before there was only sand. And the result of this transforming the desert in a wood, if you look a little bit more, is desertification of what was before. Olive tree dead in favor of strawberries, or original species become all dead because you have to plant pine trees and so on. So some contradiction of this development with the big D that we have been raised in are more and more evident, because poverty, war, climate, and all are the effect clearly of this European subject philosophically that is not considering himself as part of nature, but considers himself as master of nature. So nature, the others, women are objects, object of study in anthropology, object of plunder, and the plunder is free because, as you see, the parasitism is not made visible. So the second point there where we can work is to make more clear the parasitism, so the visibilization of this contradiction that we people use free resources of nature, of women, as given. And this is not seen as a value. This is the gift economy of nature seen as a free gift, not a value morally I'm speaking, no, not that I'm not talking about money, about recognizing a value. So this is the second link we have to make, to be able to make visible. And in that point, we have a contradiction. Do I have 2 minutes, 1 minute? Diane?
2 minutes.
Eh?
2 minutes.
Okay. Okay, so in that moment, in that making the right links practically, we have the problem of women and the women mothers. The fact that our richness as mothers was our curse in terms of men fearing the mother potence and so needing to oppress it. And in terms of this sacrifice value becoming our duty. So is the feminist liberation was also liberation from some natural destinies that were putting women in a no way life. So we have to work in these two, to make the right links with women. We have in Europe now, I wouldn't spend the time for the head of the nations, of course, because women are caught in this. They have to value their maternal species capability, but they have also not to be to make this a paradigm of society, not only of women. This has to become a duty for men too. Otherwise, they will be slaves. And the
1
second
minute.
thing is that I'm finished, that the women are becoming too much as men in their freeing themselves. So the other gray area is how you keep women near to different values than those of men. Because if women in power become men in the value they represent for the world, see our fantastic prime minister, how the hell are we defending the difference of women values from the others? So in my finish is the transition to what you present in terms of our intellectual work and practical work. Finish.
Thank you so much, Paola. Let me just check in with Jen to see if she has any other thoughts that have bubbled up as she's been listening to these very interesting and brilliant comments from our network. So Jen, would you like to unmute and
Yeah, I'd like to say to Paola that I think, we could try to convince the feminists that are now have embraced the male or patriarchal ways, patriarchal capitalist ways, about the maternal gift economy, because they do have it. It's not biological, but it's a question of the position we are in as women, having the biological ability to give birth and having the social and duty and place of taking care of the children. And even if we don't take care of our own children, if we let somebody else take care of them, and then we go become president of the United States or whatever we become, we still have an opening. We had mothers, so we've had not been alienated from the maternal model as much as men have, who have had to see themselves as non-mothering because of their incapacity to give birth. And anyway, so I think that the maternal gift economy would be something that feminists might embrace, but right now and for the last many years, there has been a real opposition to the maternal by a lot of feminists, most feminists. And that is because I think they don't realize that it's capitalism and patriarchy that make mothering so self-sacrificial and difficult, because the context does not allow gifting to the mothers themselves, and they have to take it out of their own blood, basically, to be able to take care of their children. And so that is, that is something to be overcome by explaining it. But anyway, I think that is a possibility that might be helpful, as well as I mentioned, trying to convince or make the people that are doing the gift economy projects, eco-villages and so on, to try to show them how the gift economy, maternal gift economy, is the root of what they're already doing. And of course, then I have also tried to show how language is based on the maternal gift, and so on. So I think the more we can show in different areas of life that there is a maternal basis to what they're doing, or the maternal way is contradicted by what they're doing, then maybe that is a way in that we have at least to try.
Thank you, Jen. I see that Angela D has her hand up, so I'm going to call on her in just a moment. I want to just acknowledge there are two questions, Liliana and Judith, in the Q&A. So after Angela D, I'm going to come to you for those questions. All right, Angela D.
I was just trying to bring Heide Gertner Abendroth is making a movement which is called the matriarchal, I think the matriarchal gift economy movement, which she wants to create a big movement in a way that I think we hope would somehow reach government. And in a way, if we could, for instance, create sort of committees in Italy, for instance, or even in the United States, where in a way could come and be able to talk and present these projects to the people in power. I had yesterday a very interesting meeting in the Secretary of Housing. I mean, it's small in Cali, because somehow there was a group of people that wanted to make an eco village, but they had devised something which was completely patriarchal, even though they were saying they wanted to copy Natura. So it was interesting because I presented what the project was, how it worked, how we had the women in charge, and in fact, the Secretary of Housing accepted the project and convinced the other people that this is the way it should be done. So I think in a way, if we could see where we could get, for instance, I mean, it's just a matter of getting to be able to talk to women who are in power, because I think women generally are open to these sort of solutions or to these proposals. So I don't know, for instance, where we could get the Prime Minister of Italy, who obviously been elected by the patriarchal capitalism. But obviously, if he could just talk, I sometimes wonder where Putin's daughter could talk to him. But obviously, you know, I mean, he's not that sort of person. But anyway, yeah. So
Thank you so much, Angela D. All right, let me, I'm going to check in with Liliana and then I'll go to Judith, and let's take that first question, Liliana.
Yeah, so there's a question from Joy Health, and she asks, is there a list of private matriarchal giving receiving communities or circles in the world where we can connect locally?
There are some, yeah, there are some. And if you want, I can try to get together a list and other people can help me, and I'll tell you. I know some, like the ones that Heide Gertner Abendroth has initiated or has been the inspiration for. And there are a number of gift economy groups that are not based on the maternal gift economy, but they are trying to do gifting. Anyway, then if you'd like, let's see, write to us and I'll try to get together a list.
So in short, there is not a list that anyone knows of. So I will say that in the almost 4 years that we've had these salons, it comes up at least once a quarter. And so it sounds like Jen is preparing to create that list now. So yes, Jen.
This one, if you go back and watch all of our videos, you will see a lot of the gift economy people who have some sort of gift projects that are ongoing.
Yes, and so if you would like, we'll put in an email address that we can collect all that information if you want to make suggestions for communities or organizations that you can send it to, and then we will create an active list that we can add to. All right, that would be great. All right, so Angela D, you also have your hand up again.
Nachira is a sort of maternal, I say sort because obviously we have to survive within the capitalist world, but basically Nachira, which is a community which is managed by women, basically because the decisions are taken by women, is moving in the best that we can towards the maternal gift economy. And as I was telling Jen, it was very interesting because when we had that recent visit by Sabina, the women there, when they were talking about that, they said to Sabina, who came here because she's going to make this next year. She's going to hold a conference on matriarchal gift economy in Nachira for a month. So anyway, when she talked to some of the women there, they said, oh, we used to have we used to have every month a place that we would sell our goods and for money, but now we don't do it anymore because we belong to the gift economy. So what we have is gratiferias. So we just give things, we don't sell them anymore. So I thought it were really funny because somehow it has come into their heads what it is, the maternal gift economy. This is a community of 400 people in which there are 80 women who own their own houses, and they've been going on for 22 years.
Thank you, Angela. Diane put in a link to Nashira so that you can learn more about that community itself. And Sabina's work that is coming to Nashira is a month-long study that she is actually having there. So it's an educational forum that's going on, a training. I can look for that and see if I can put a link to that in the chat as well. In the chat, I've put the email maternalgifteconomy@gmail.com for any of your, if I spelled it correctly, if any of you have suggestions, that would be great. Send them to us and we'll compile a list. We've been thinking about this now ongoing for about 4 years. So we'll come up with a strategy of where you'll be able to find that list. And it will be dynamic because as we get your suggestions, we'll have Jen perhaps take a look at them and see if they qualify for her, put them on the list view of whether or not they actually hold the gift economy and perhaps. All right. Judith, do you have a question for the group?
I note that there are a number of people in the chat that are volunteering to help with the project of compiling this list. Bob writes that he's freed himself intellectually, but emotionally he finds it more difficult to free himself from the patriarchal economy. And then there's a number of comments on that. Marie says men need to step aside and start listening to women. Patricia says you need to keep trusting, and we need to invite men to listen and from an inner point of view and strength and respect for both genders with compassion. And we need unconditional respect for each other in order to find the proper balance. So I wonder if you could speak to the question of, Jen has already mentioned the problem of how men are taught to be, are masculated, but speak to the question of some ways perhaps to try to reverse that, to try to step out of that model.
Jen?
Yeah, I think if you recognize it's an economic problem, it really doesn't have to do with gender, because gender is, male gender is constructed out of a distortion of the maternal gendered gift. And so the way of resolving that is to return to the gift economy and realize that men are homodonons too, just like women. That is, men are really women who have been altered by our patriarchal and exchange economy. And it is possible to return and to educate your children in that way. Men and women can educate their children in that way. So it's a question of a leap, a leap towards a different understanding of ourselves as all mothering, and to find that in ourselves, men too.
Thank you, Jen. All right, let's welcome Areeya. Not only did she put her hand up, but she joined us late. So Areeya, unmute.
Apologies for my tardiness. Thank you. I just wanted to, this question, I'd like to offer just a couple of practical things for those beings that we mostly as humanoids call men, or as Jen said, this idea of gender, right, which was impressed upon us in the first place. We are flesh beings, humanoids. We are a species of this planet Earth, of this Mother Earth. We are of the living things. So practical practices with living things, being kind to nature, going on hikes, taking your family on hikes, going to be with nature, to sit with nature, to see how nature actually breathes. So to sit and breathe and see with nature. What I find is the very simple things that deeply move. So what I heard in the question was, how does a man, somebody, address the emotional influence, the emotional entrainment of patriarchy? Because this is an entrainment. This is felt viscerally. I was a soldier. I feel it viscerally. When I hear that question, I can feel something that feels dominating, colonizing, something in my cells that says, shh, do as entrained. So having something tactile, something that you can feel, going out, having your feet, yeah, I said it, barefoot. I know it's not for everybody, yet the bottoms of our feet, our hands, our crowns, the roots of our spine, these are places we can physically touch in nature to remind ourselves that we are actually interconnected, that we are emotionally, psychologically, physically, spiritually, some say energetically connected, interdependency. So I just wanted to offer that understanding that that's still difficult when you're in the moment and you feel emotionally like something has pressed a button, because that's what I hear. How do we do those things to avoid having the buttons pressed that we know are a part of the entrainment that is unhealthful for our being, for our species? And so honoring nature, finding a true warm-heartedness to understand and sit with nature, not in nature, with nature, with each other. So thank you very much. That's all I really want to offer, because this is a really big subject. I love you for letting me in, and I was late. Apologies.
Thank you, Areeya. Yeah, I'll just add that, one of the things in the Filipino culture, the highest level and the highest form of being in a physical body is to be human. And all of the categories of what it means to be a wise elder, a good child, those are all human qualities. And then gender is a different issue. So the question, when I hear Jen speak about the maternal gift economy being the original blueprint for humans, it is about, being a humanoid and what's the most important things that we all share as being human, regardless of an identity that might be a gender. So I think those are the qualities that we can go back to. So I just want to say, Bob, don't try to wrap your mind around too many different things. It's really the Western psychology and Western culture has actually predefined human qualities that are assigned dominantly to males and females, or men and women, or masculine and feminine. So I'm here to say that there are many cultures that never did that and have only done it because colonization has superimposed it and required us to use that as a level of communication and relating. But amongst ourselves, it's not the way that we relate to each other. All right. So, Jen, you had your hand up.
Thumb up.
Okay, great. Yeah. I think if we get back to what it really means to be, homo donans, really humans, really human, giving humans, that's really what Jen is really, that's our call to action, is to remember that. Yeah, Jen.
Yeah, we think that from what has happened, that as a species, we are suicidal. I mean, we have created terrible things. It's actually not the whole species that's done this. It's mainly Euro-Americans. And we have to learn from the rest of the world that has not done it. And the women of us still have a link to the gift economy because we are the ones that birth the children and have to take care of them. And that we practice the gift economy even at least in the first years of our children's lives. And even though it's terribly difficult in the midst of patriarchal capitalism, and it becomes discredited because it's self-sacrificial. But in a different kind of society, it's fine. And the whole society mothers. That's what we need to do.
I love that idea. When I first was introduced to Jen's work, the idea of changing language so that rather than saying parenting, I say mothering, because raising a child isn't neutral. It really are all the categories that every species on the planet actually does for its children, and it initiates with the mother. So it made sense that anything that had to do with that first interaction that's unilateral that Jen emphasizes, that's why we learn that first in our very first relationship. It makes sense to actually begin to infuse our language with gift language. Mm-hmm. And it almost forces us to actually remind ourselves, because it's easy when we start using other words that automatically our memory takes us into a different sphere. And we're looking from a different perspective. Paola, you have your hand, you're waving.
I want us to add to that.
Yes.
Recognizing that is being able to recognize the value of that, which is our obstacle today. Also because capitalism has put all this value to the private life, which is devalued completely, no, in terms of the, but which is what keeps people alive. So people kill for that, people love. I mean, all the, let's say, the area of love that is devalued, feminized, is the patria, come si dice, is the country of women, right? Is the domain of women, completely devalued by capitalism. But it's what keeps people going. I mean, when they say family and friends, they say that when everything falls apart, one hooks up to the most nearby people that they love. So all that has to be visible in its significance in terms of the gift economy, not of the private life, and put in the public, throw back in the public as value, as paradigm of social and political and economic life. That is the real obstacle we have, the recognition of this importance, and this is a battle we have to do.
Thank you, Paola. Jen, did you have
Oh, no,
anything you wanted?
I agree. I think that's a great way of explaining what we have to do. Yes.
Okay. There have been multiple requests to make sure, Jen, that your talk is actually put up with the recording. Is that okay? Are you willing to do that?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. The written version.
Yes,
Yeah.
your written text. That would be so wonderful, because then we can really take a look at it and dig deep. Susan, did you have something you wanted to share at this point? You can unmute, my friend.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask Jen a question. I think, did you mention transgendering, and whether you did or not? I would be very interested in hearing what you think about transgendering, you know, the whole process in the framework of your gift economy.
Yeah, I think that it's a way of doing physiologically what we need to do psychologically, at least first. We need to move ourselves into the gift paradigm for everybody. So men and women, both genders, need to be a single gender as regards the gift economy. So we need to be economically a single gender and not divided as a gender, as two genders, as we have been with patriarchy and capitalism, where men mostly used to work in the market and women were used to being kept at home. So that division has remained psychologically to some extent, and the two need to be brought together theoretically, economically, and as people are trying to do it physiologically with gender, altering their gender. It's different from the male to female and female to male, but and I don't think that the people who do actually do the physical transformation think about it this way, but that's what I think. And I think it's a huge social expression of the need to go back to the gift economy for everybody. So yeah, I don't know if I've said everything I needed to say, but that's more or less it.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Jen.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I'm checking in. I'm doing a time check. So I just want all of our guests to know that we have about, I'd say about 15 minutes left. So I'm wondering if we can do a pass and see if you have anything that you'd like to offer, and we'll let Jen give the last word and then I'll close us out. So yes, Susan, you unmuted. Is there some last words you'd like to offer in this moment?
Oh,
Well, with reference to what Jen has just said, yes, that's interesting, isn't it? Because really, it's about not being obsessed with identity, with one's identity. You know, while we need identity is a part of human culture, you know, the identity of motherhood or the identity of the earth or whatever. The problem is the obsession, you know, when identity becomes an obsession, closed identity, you know, I'm a male, patriarchal, I'm white, I'm Italian, I'm this, I'm that, and all this serves to as a barricade, a wall against other identities. You know, so you have a conflict between identities. Whereas, you know, the whole concept of trans is interesting in the sense that it's the tendency to overcome, let's say, these limits and barriers and walls. It tells of the need of going towards the other dialogically. Understanding that there is this interconnectivity, and that is the basis of life, of healthy life, absolutely everywhere. Yeah, okay, that's all. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you so much, Susan. Yes, and I'll just add that I think for me, you know, again, as a woman of color, speaking with other women of color and indigenous cultures, the transgender, it's a non-issue in other cultures. It isn't an issue because other cultures have over thousands of years resolved the question of identity as roles that we play, and that everybody has a sacred role, even the trans people. And now what we're seeing is that is not a place, there is not a place in Western culture and Western religion. There isn't a place for people who differ. And that's where a lot of the confusion comes in. And I also want to add that for those of you who are listening in the future and those of you present in the room, I don't think any one of us on this panel identify as gender specialists. We're here for the maternal gift economy, and that's really where that point of view is coming from. So if you're looking for answers about transgenderism, you need to actually find those experts who that's their deep dive and their deep study across cultures and in the global world. So let me just go on and see if Angela D, do you have anything else that you would like to offer to the group? Just a short 1 minute closing.
I just would like to say that I think that the people or the persons who have written and who are in this conference, if each person can actually contribute something to the maternal gift economy, that in itself will be a way of going forward. Sometimes I say something that it doesn't really, I would say in a way is politically incorrect in a way, but I have said many times that those of us who have more than 3 houses, maybe they could create an eco-village for 100 women, and in that way they could contribute to making these women part of the new economy and the new world that we are co-creating. That is just my closing words.
Thank you so much, Angela D. Maria, you have some closing comments or words you'd like to offer?
I can't, it's too frustrating. I will when I have internet.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Maria.
you.
We're
It's great to only listen. I have had to learn that for the past month. That's the only thing I have learned about this internet system. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Susan, any general closing comments you'd like to make before?
I'd like to, we've spoken about the importance of working in the community and activism, working on the ground, let's say. And I really want to underline also the importance of education. The work we do in the family, in the circles we are born into is fundamental. And this has to continue in education. Education is fundamental, and we should be also thinking about what kinds of programs could be introduced to help the discourse and the activism, not just at university, from early phases of education. So from infancy, there should be some sort of continuity that looks at what we're talking about from the very beginning of life and onwards. So education.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Susan. All right, let's see if we can have Peggy, do you have any last words that you might want to offer, as you gave us some really wonderful points of making sure that we recognize our personal, familial, our community, and the global in our moving forward these days. Anything else you'd like to offer?
No, Letecia, thanks for asking. I've written some things in the chat, and I think we just continue to do our work.
Wonderful. And we'll miss you, even though you're in Barbados. I might have to come down and visit.
I'll be, once I get internet, I'll be with you all every week.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Peggy. All right. Let me check in with Areeya and see. Areeya, you joined us late. I know you, a priestess's work, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Areeya is our priestess in residence at the Sekhmet Temple in just outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. Areeya, do you have any words of that you'd like to offer before we close?
Just real quick, if every day, those of us that really think about it, I go back to this question that I think was Bob. If we have a practice, those of us that really recognize the colonization coming out of us at times, we're like, oh, why did I say that? Why did I do that? What was my feeling? What was my thinking in that? So the marriage, what is the practice every day? Is it getting up in the morning? Is it doing exercise? Is it standing in the grass? Is it being, I really would encourage being with nature. In some way, light a candle, light an incense. What is the physical action that you are doing, that you are practicing every morning when you wake, which will determine how your day goes? What is it? What is it that will help the warm-heartedness, where your thinking and your feeling marry in your heart? What is it? I please just invite you to do that. It could just be sitting, thinking of your feet on the ground with your crown open and breathing into your heart and saying thank you to your heart. If you try that in the morning and you put your hand on your heart and say thank you for beating. Do you know, when I first started that practice, every day my heartbeat got louder. Why? Why? Well, if we are also, here's my 14 seconds, a part of this Mother Earth, this mothering, then allowing ourselves that moment to orientate with her can have a beautiful, beautiful resonance that you live and breathe all day, which will help you recognize when you are just speaking from the system that is no longer warranted, needed, or wanted. So thank you. Say thank you to your heart. I say thank you to each one of your heartbeats for being here.
Thank you, Areeya. Maria, you have your hand up. Would you like to say something? Yeah.
I want to try to say something. And it is that much of what we have talked about integrating, and also what Susan started saying, that there is a continuity about patriarchy, capitalism, supremacism, and extractivism historically, that when we haven't stopped it, it has gotten really worse. I want to call on all of us to look at the worst case scenario that we have today, which is the situation of Palestine. What patriarchy seems to have learned about the place of women, regardless the historical shunning of women all over the place. And what it has learned, and also the resistance of women, because I just organized with a group of feminists this morning, a webcast or whatever we call, no, what was it?
A podcast. A
Podcast.
podcast.
Into Palestine and many other countries about the conceptualization that the feminist collective of Palestinians have done. It's called reproductive genocide, and it is amazing what they are contributing about understanding the deepening of patriarchy, and also how the Israeli government is building on what they know about the power of women that is there, even though we don't claim it or exercise it openly all the time, and how they are shaping the worst case scenario for us. So it's a matter of life and death. It has always been a matter of life and death for women, but now it's a matter of life and death for everybody, and even the whole planet. So it's my call to look at to everything that we have said today. I'm glad to have only listened for 2 hours, and link it to what the Palestinian women are conceptualizing about all of this in the worst case scenario that we have in the planet today. Thank you. Oh, I didn't get caught. Thank you, Internet.
Thank you, Maria. All right, Paola, and then I'm going to go to Jen for the last words, and then I'll close us out. So, Paola.
I don't have much to add. Just one thing. Can Maria, in a way, took what I had in mind, but I have it in a different way. So I add something to Areeya. To live nature like that, we need to be able to receive that message from nature. Otherwise, nature is a fantastic free thing that we can use without paying anything. So I just want to say, look please closely to Palestine, how the level of narratives, the deviceness shows us the distance from facts to narratives. And for narrative, I say recognition of what is going on, the meaning we give to things. And so the paradigms we apply to reality. So it's not, the facts are not enough. The existence of nature is not enough. We need a path to transform the meaning, and that they have to tell us something different than up to now, in capitalism. It's not, nature exists in capitalism, fantastic, free, to plunder better. So, that's it.
Thank you, Paola. Jen, you have some last words.
Yes, Paola, we need the gift of the truth. All the rest of that is exchange and lies. And Maria, please send us your podcast. I want to hear what is that in Spanish or English or what?
Going on the air tomorrow morning. I'm going to put the link. It's going on the air in a radio, in about 50 radios. I'll send the link.
Okay, thank you.
You already heard it because it already went on the special session, but but we amalgamated it even further because of the experience already.
That's great. So I think it's up to everybody to try to figure out how to bring the maternal gifting economy paradigm forward, to understand it as best possible and try to bring it forward as an alternative to this disaster that we're living in. And it is an alternative, and it has been for centuries, but we haven't been able to express it, to bring it into the eye of the public, and we don't know about it even ourselves. Women don't even know about it themselves. So I just say we need to hurry, and we need to do it as thoroughly as we can. We don't know, even if there are people that say we only have 6 years, we don't know about larger currents in nature, in humanity, that may be more positive than we think. And so we have to count on that, I think, and go forward as best we can in all the possible ways we can to change the paradigm, to live it differently, but also to explain it differently so that people can make different choices on the basis of this alternative rather than on the capitalist exchange alternative. That's it.
Thank you, Jen. I just want to thank everyone who spoke today. Genevieve, Vaughan, Paola Melchiori, Angela Dolmetsch, Susan Petrilli, Maria Suarez, Peggy Antrobus, Areeya Marie Sharp, for all of your wise words. Each one of you holds a particular perspective that when your voices are heard, is a gateway or a doorway for someone to actually connect to reach more inspiration, more understanding, and a way into the maternal gift economy. Because I know you as my sisters in this work, that you are doing the work to ensure that the maternal gift economy not only is heard in the world, but is thriving in your own lives as best as you can live it and bring it to your work. So I want to just thank you deeply from the bottom of my heart. I also want to thank Liliana and Judith, who patiently wait to be called upon, searching out the best things that could come forward in our questions, and for Diane, who has the pressure of actually holding the technology in her hands, making sure that we have the appropriate amount of time. I think the hardest thing to do on these kinds of salons is to tell a speaker when their time is up, because we don't want to interrupt somebody who has such a brilliant thought. It's very awkward, but thank you so much, Diane. And I'm Letecia Layson. I'm going to thank myself because I actually got out of bed and I came here because I absolutely love this community. I really will say that those of us who come to this community come to give our gifts. And without my sisters in this network, and without you, the viewers and the participants in this room, I wouldn't be able to give my gift. And that's really what we're all here to do. I want to just remind you that in 2 weeks, we have another salon number 71. I feel really impressed that we've been doing this for almost 4 years now, and we have 70 salons under our belts, along with some really interesting special events and book launches. So please join us on October 12th. Diane sends out a MailChimp that lets everyone know, and I post it on Facebook so that you'll know and remind you to come and join us. This recording, Jen's talk, and also I'm encouraging us to also post the chat. There were a lot of really interesting resources and comments that came up in the chat. For those of you who are in the room, our presenters were busy listening so that they could comment, but they will be getting a copy of the chat sent to them along with the questions. And we also send them a list of the emails for the registrants in case one of you has actually talked to them directly and they couldn't respond to you personally during our session. So please, everyone, the world is in this particular state. I'm going to leave you with some thoughts from my viewpoint. I think of it as priestessing on the edge of chaos, that here we are at this seminal point in history My mentors and futurists who I met in the 80s gave me a perspective of the world out until 2030. Some of those projections began in the 1960s and the 1970s. They created world models, these gigantic computer models that actually would extrapolate out if-then statements of if this was happening from all over the world. They got input from the military, from every sphere of influence. One of the things that they encouraged us to do was, number one, you need to survive. Your voice and your gift is essential for the unfolding future that's sustainable, that allows for the maternal gift. It is a radical notion to take care of your health, to really take care of yourself. You cannot give your gift without being healthy. So that's number one. Number two, it's really important to find islands of sanity, to give yourself opportunity to be a human being, to play, to encourage yourself, to stay connected to the relationships that remind you who you really are. Because those are foundational to be able to give your work. When you're at the core and center of your being, the choices that you make come from a place that's so deep in your purpose. We each are here to do a thing, and only you can do the thing you came to do. And only we will be able to have a future unfolding that is co-created by us if we do it together. So I want to thank you all for joining us here. I want to encourage you to continue to come back. And I want to encourage you to have a wonderful rest of your weekend. We'll see you in 2 weeks. So bye for now, everyone. Take really good care.